There are moments in life when we get caught up in battles that only worsen the situation the more we fight. You argue to defend the truth, but all you get is confusion. No understanding. The words you speak don't change anything, they only make things more tangled. While the person who wronged you walks away unscathed, injustice repeats itself, and you feel like you're losing control. But there's another path, one that few consider. A path that doesn't involve arguing, doesn't involve justification. It's the path of silence. And the miracle is, within that silence, a deep strength can emerge. In Buddhist philosophy, karma, the law of cause and effect, isn't just an abstract concept, but a timeless natural law, where every action, word, and thought we put into the world returns to us in ways we cannot always predict. Sometimes, when facing injustice, manipulation, or hurtful words, the best response isn't a reaction, but to let silence speak for you and allow karma to take its course. Because silence is not weakness. It's a courageous choice. It's letting go, a deep trust that everything will resolve in its own time, in a way we couldn't have imagined. In every difficult situation, when you choose not to react, you're taking control of yourself and allowing the natural laws to guide the way forward. Today, I'll take you through 7 situations in life where silence is not only the wisest choice, but the most powerful and freeing one. I'll share real-life stories and Buddhist lessons, helping you understand that sometimes, the greatest strength comes from silence and from trusting in karma. Let's explore together, and you'll see why, sometimes, silence is not surrender, but liberation. 1. When someone lies about you, the weight of a lie can be overwhelming. Especially when it's about you. It feels like a heavy cloud hovering over your reputation, casting shadows over your truth. The instinct to defend yourself kicks in fiercely. You want to correct the record, to make sure that everyone knows what really happened. It's natural to feel the desire to fight back, to make sure the truth stands clear, like a beacon in the dark. Yet, in those very moments, Buddhism offers us a profound lesson that can change the way we approach conflict, one that may seem counterintuitive, but is incredibly powerful. The truth, much like the Buddha's teachings, remains constant, even in the face of deceit and lies. No matter how loud or persistent, are impermanent. They rise, they spread, but eventually, they fade. The truth? It always finds its way to the surface. This is where the wisdom of silence comes into play. In a world that constantly demands reactions and explanations, silence is often misunderstood. It's not weakness. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Silence, when chosen deliberately, is an active form of power. It's the choice to step back from the drama, the chaos, and the noise. It's the act of trusting in the natural flow of karma. Because here's the thing. When you react, you give energy to the lie. You feed it. Every word you speak in your defense, every attempt to correct the narrative, only serves to give the lie more life. You're engaging in a battle you can never win. One where your actions give the lie the fuel it needs to burn brighter. Choosing silence, however, is different. By withholding your reaction, you deny the lie its power. You refuse to engage in the falsehood, and you allow karma to do what it does best, reveal the truth in its own time. This is the key: time. The Buddha often spoke of the impermanence of things. And it's this very impermanence that gives us the peace we need to endure lies. Lies may seem to have power in the moment, but they can never last forever. The truth, rooted in righteousness and virtue, will always have the last word. I think back to a time when a colleague of mine, James, found himself in the middle of a situation where lies were being spread about him at work. The rumors were damaging, and the temptation to rush around correcting the false narratives was strong. It would have been so easy for him to try to explain himself to everyone, to clear his name, but instead, he chose the path of silence. He didn't give in to the pressure to defend himself. He kept his focus on his work, remained consistent, and simply allowed time to reveal the truth. And that's exactly what happened. Weeks later, the person who had spread the rumor was exposed for having a history of dishonesty. People began to realize that James had done nothing wrong all along. By choosing silence, James didn't have to engage in the drama. His actions, over time, became the truth. The lies, which had once seemed so loud and convincing, eventually fell apart on their own. His silence had allowed the natural course of events to unfold, and the truth had been revealed in the most peaceful, unforced way. This story shows us a powerful lesson: the strength of silence. In a world where we're taught to respond, to defend, and to fight, silence can feel unnatural, but sometimes, it's the wisest and most effective response. Silence doesn't mean you're ignoring the situation or giving up. It means you're allowing karma to work its magic. You're trusting that, eventually, the truth will rise, and when it does, it will need no defense. The Buddha often spoke of the importance of right speech, but he also recognized that sometimes, the most powerful words are the ones we choose not to say. The next time you find yourself facing a lie, remember this: the truth will always rise to the surface. You don't need to fight to make it known. Trust in the power of silence, and let the lie fall apart on its own. In the end, karma will ensure that the truth speaks louder than anything you could say. 2. When someone betrays your trust. Betrayal hits hard, doesn't it? There's no pain quite like it. Especially when it comes from someone you trusted deeply. It feels like a dagger piercing your heart, leaving behind a wound that feels almost impossible to heal. In those moments, it's only natural to want to confront the betrayer. You want answers. You want them to see the hurt they've caused. And perhaps, if nothing else, you want an apology, something to acknowledge that what they did was wrong. It's easy to imagine a confrontation where they'll finally feel the weight of their actions, where you'll make them regret their betrayal. But Buddhism offers a perspective that's not only gentle but profoundly healing. It teaches us that clinging to the pain others cause us only keeps us stuck in that hurt. Holding onto that suffering, especially the anger and resentment, only perpetuates more suffering. Attachment to hurt keeps us tethered to the past, preventing us from moving forward. When someone betrays your trust, they are showing you their true nature. And the truth is, no amount of pleading, reasoning, or confrontation will change them. We often think that by explaining our pain, we can make the other person understand, that by confronting them, we can get them to see how wrong they were. But in reality, we can't change people's hearts if they are not willing to change themselves. The more we try, the more we feed the narrative of betrayal. Instead of continuously engaging in this cycle, the best thing you can do is to let go, to detach from the situation and from that person. This doesn't mean that you condone the betrayal, nor does it mean you're giving up. It means that you are releasing the emotional burden that is weighing you down. Your silence, in the face of betrayal, is not a sign of weakness, it's actually a powerful act of strength. It's an act of letting go. By walking away without a confrontation, without a need for revenge or an apology, you are choosing peace over pain. You are choosing to no longer allow that person or their actions to have any more control over your emotions or your life. I think of Sarah, a close friend of mine, who experienced this kind of betrayal. She had known her betrayer for years, trusted them like family, but this person, once close to her, began spreading rumors and lies about Sarah, attacking her character and her integrity. The instinct to confront her friend was strong. She could have reacted with anger, or sought an explanation, or tried to make her friend feel guilty. But Sarah chose a different path. She chose to walk away, not in anger, but in silence. She distanced herself, not out of spite, but out of a deep sense of self-preservation. The more time went by, the more Sarah's former friend felt the absence of her trust and support. And as Sarah moved on with her life, karma began to work its magic. Over time, the manipulative behavior of her former friend came to light. Others began to see the truth. And Sarah's integrity, untouched by the chaos of betrayal, remained strong. The truth is, when you choose silence and walk away, you are making a statement far more powerful than any words could express. You are saying that you are worthy of peace. You are choosing to preserve your dignity instead of engaging in a battle that would only continue to drain you. Silence, in this case, becomes the ultimate form of self-respect. It allows you to detach from attachments to anger, to revenge, and to a past that no longer serves you. And it's in this release, this letting go, that true strength is found. You're not weak for walking away. You're strong because you've chosen to free yourself from the grip of hurt and betrayal. The silence isn't passive, it's active. It's an intentional act of reclaiming your peace. In those moments, when betrayal tries to tear you apart, remember, walking away with dignity is the most powerful thing you can do. By releasing what no longer serves you, you're clearing space for something far greater: inner peace, strength, and the clarity to move forward without looking back. In the end, karma will reveal the truth, and you will find that your silence has spoken louder than anything you could have said. 3. When someone insults you, insults are a deliberate attempt to provoke, to stir up negative emotions, to push you into a corner where your pride and patience are tested. They are designed to hurt, to make you feel small, to knock you off balance. The person delivering the insult often has their own frustrations and insecurities, and they project them onto you in the hopes of feeling better about themselves. But here's the lesson: when someone insults you, their words are not a reflection of who you are. They're a reflection of who they are. Buddhism teaches us that our reactions are our responsibility. No one can make us feel anything unless we allow them to. When someone insults you, they are trying to pull you into their emotional turmoil, to drag you down into their negative energy. The key to true strength lies in the choice not to engage, not to give their words power over your emotions. You have the ability to remain unshaken, to not react in the way they expect. And by doing so, you are not only maintaining your peace, but you are also demonstrating a level of emotional mastery that few can achieve. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher, once said, The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. This aligns perfectly with Buddhist teachings, where we are encouraged to cultivate compassion instead of anger, peace instead of conflict. When we respond with calmness, we are not giving the insult more energy. Instead, we are choosing a higher path, one of wisdom and self-restraint. We don't need to retaliate, because the power of silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. I remember David, a man I once knew, who had to deal with constant insults from a jealous coworker. This coworker, for reasons unknown to David, would make snide remarks about him regularly, criticizing his work, his appearance, his accomplishments. One day, this coworker made a particularly cruel comment about David's recent promotion, trying to belittle him in front of the entire team. Everyone in the room waited for David to react, to defend himself or to lash back. But David didn't. He simply smiled, made eye contact with the coworker, and said nothing. There was no anger, no attempt to explain or justify himself. He stood there in complete calm, unaffected by the remark. That moment speaks volumes. It was David's calmness that disarmed the situation. His silence was not weakness, it was strength. It was a quiet refusal to let the coworker's negativity seep into his mind and soul. In the end, it wasn't David who looked bad, it was his coworker. The coworker, expecting a reaction, was left standing awkwardly, exposed for the pettiness of their attack. David maintained his dignity, his integrity intact, while his coworker's insecurity became glaringly obvious to everyone around them. The lesson here is clear. Insults say more about the person delivering them than they do about you. When you remain calm and unshaken, when you choose not to react, you show that their words have no power over you. Your silence becomes the ultimate defense. It's not about avoiding conflict, it's about choosing not to get dragged into it. In those moments, when insults are hurled your way, remember that you have the power to choose how to respond. You can allow their negativity to affect you, or you can rise above it with calmness and poise. Silence, in this case, is the ultimate act of strength. It shows that you have control over your emotions and your response. That you are not easily rattled by the petty words of others. And in doing so, you demonstrate the highest form of self-respect. Your calmness is a reflection of your inner peace. And that, more than any words, is what truly matters. 4. When someone plays the victim, it's a challenging experience when someone consistently plays the victim, shifting blame and twisting narratives to gain sympathy. It's as if they're constantly pulling at your emotional strings, trying to make you feel guilty or responsible for their discomfort, even when it's not your fault. The more you try to explain yourself, the more they distort the facts, portraying themselves as the injured party, and ultimately, turning you into the villain. It can feel like you're trapped in a never-ending cycle of defending your actions, only to have the truth twisted and manipulated. But here's where Buddhism teaches us a powerful lesson. Don't get tangled in the web of stories that others create. Especially not stories designed to provoke you into reacting. In those moments, silence becomes your greatest tool. You don't need to defend yourself against someone who isn't looking for a resolution, but rather is seeking attention and validation for their own narrative. Their goal isn't to understand or resolve the situation. It's to manipulate the perception of others and make themselves appear as the victim. And the more you engage, the more you're feeding into their manipulation. Instead, step back, hold your peace, and let silence do the work. Over time, the true nature of their behavior will reveal itself. Karma, as we know, has a way of exposing the truth in the most unexpected ways. I think of Rachel, a close friend of mine who worked with a colleague who always played the victim card. No matter what the situation was, this colleague would twist things to make herself seem like the wronged party. At first, Rachel tried to explain her side, to show the truth of the matter. But the more she engaged, the more her coworker dug in, reinforcing her victimhood. It was as if every explanation Rachel offered was only seen as an attack. And each defense she made added fuel to the fire. The situation became increasingly frustrating, and Rachel felt caught in a cycle of endless justifications. But instead of continuing this fruitless battle, she chose a different path. She decided to stop defending herself altogether. She chose silence, not as a form of defeat, but as a form of strength. Over time, Rachel's silence spoke volumes. Her coworkers' constant victimhood became evident to others. They started to see the pattern, the way she manipulated situations to gain sympathy. Always positioning herself as the aggrieved one, regardless of the facts. And as karma has a way of doing, the truth started to unfold. Others began to see Rachel for who she truly was. And her reputation remained untainted, untouched by the false narratives that had once sought to distort it. What Rachel realized, and what we must understand, is that sometimes the best response to manipulation is no response at all. When you choose silence, you aren't backing down or admitting defeat. You are simply choosing not to engage with negativity, not to give any more power to someone else's attempt to control the narrative. Silence, in these cases, isn't passive. It's a deliberate act of letting go of the need to control how others see you. It's an act of trust in the natural course of things, in karma, which will ultimately expose the truth without your interference. In the end, the lesson is clear. Don't argue with someone who thrives on victimhood. Their actions will speak for themselves. And while they may try to twist the story, silence will reveal the truth in ways words never could. By choosing to remain calm and unshaken, you allow their manipulation to crumble on its own. And in doing so, you protect your peace and your integrity. Let karma handle the situation, for it will always bring the truth to light, often in a way far more powerful than any argument ever could. 5. When someone ignores your worth, being undervalued is a deep, aching pain, one that seeps into the heart and leaves a mark that is hard to ignore. It's a feeling that often comes in relationships, at work, and even in friendships, where your efforts and contributions are overlooked, and your worth seems to go unnoticed. The instinct, when faced with this, is to fight for recognition. You want to prove that you matter, that you deserve to be seen and appreciated. You start to explain, to justify your value, to put yourself forward. But here's where Buddhism offers a powerful and liberating perspective. In Buddhism, we are reminded that our self-worth does not depend on the validation or recognition of others. In fact, seeking validation only diminishes our sense of value. The more we beg for recognition, the less we honor ourselves. Instead, silence can become an unexpected ally. By stepping back, by not chasing after the recognition you deserve, you allow others to see what they once took for granted. Silence has a quiet power. It speaks without words. It allows the people around you to feel the absence of your presence, to recognize your worth without you needing to shout it from the rooftops. And it is in this silence, in this quiet withdrawal, that others may begin to realize what they've lost. Jake, a man I know, learned this lesson the hard way. He always went out of his way to maintain relationships, to check in on his friends, to offer support, and to make sure that those around him knew they were valued. He was the one who called, who reached out, who made an effort. He cared deeply about the people in his life and was always there for them when they needed him. But over time, he began to notice something painful. His efforts were not being reciprocated. He was the only one reaching out. No one was making the effort to check in on him, to show that they cared about him in return. His value was being overlooked, and he began to feel like he was giving more than he was receiving. At first, Jake tried to convince himself that maybe his friends were just busy or that he hadn't made it clear how much he appreciated them. But as time went on, the pattern was undeniable. So, Jake made a quiet but powerful decision. He stopped trying to prove his worth. He stopped reaching out, stopped being the one to make the effort. He didn't make a big scene, didn't demand that they pay attention to him. He simply withdrew, quietly and without drama. And here's the surprising part. Once he stopped chasing after recognition, the people who truly cared about him started reaching out. They noticed the absence of his presence. They realized how much they missed his support, his friendship, and his energy. The ones who had taken him for granted began to fade away. They didn't notice what they had until it was no longer there. Jake's silence revealed his worth in a way that words never could. This is the powerful lesson we can all take from Jake's experience. Sometimes, walking away in silence teaches others the true value of your presence. When you stop begging for recognition, you allow others the space to understand your importance. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you or acknowledge you in the moment. It's intrinsic. It's rooted in who you are, not in the recognition you receive. And when you step back, when you let time do its work, the people who truly value you will rise to the surface, while those who took you for granted will fade away. In these moments of being undervalued, it's essential to remember, you are not defined by how others see you. Your worth is constant, independent of the opinions or treatment of others. Trust that time will reveal who truly values you, and let that truth unfold naturally. Your silence, your retreat from the cycle of proving yourself, is not weakness, it is strength. It is the strength to know your value without needing anyone else to confirm it. And in the end, the ones who matter will recognize it. The ones who don't will fall away. 6. When someone tries to provoke you, there are certain individuals in life who seem to thrive on conflict. They seek it out, savor it, and provoke it at every opportunity. They don't care about resolution or understanding. What they crave is the reaction, the emotional response they can stir up in others. They want to see you react, to lose your composure, and by doing so, they gain control over your emotions. It's a dangerous game, one that many of us have been drawn into at some point. But the truth is, every time we react, we hand over a piece of our power. We allow them to dictate our emotional state, and in doing so, we lose control of ourselves. Buddhism teaches us that the true power lies not in reacting, but in controlling our own mind. The mind is where all of our strength begins. And in the practice of mindfulness, we learn to observe, to acknowledge, and ultimately to release the emotional triggers that others try to push. To not engage in their provocation is to take back your power. It is a deliberate choice to preserve your inner peace and remain steadfast in the face of chaos. I remember a man named Adam, a former colleague of mine, who had to deal with a coworker who seemed to live for drama. Every conversation with this person felt like an opportunity to throw a jab, to make a cutting remark, or to test Adam's patience. At first, Adam would react. He would try to defend himself, correct the falsehoods, or argue back, believing that by engaging he was setting things straight. But the more he reacted, the more the situation escalated. Every word he spoke only fueled his coworker's behavior, and the conflict deepened. Adam began to realize something important. He wasn't changing the situation by reacting, he was just prolonging it, giving his coworker the satisfaction of knowing he had control over Adam's emotions. So, Adam made a conscious decision to change his approach. The next time his coworker tried to provoke him, Adam chose silence. He smiled politely, remained calm, and simply said nothing. He didn't allow himself to be pulled into the emotional whirlwind. There was no anger, no defensiveness, just a quiet, centered presence. His coworker, expecting a reaction, was left standing there, unsure of how to proceed. The drama evaporated. Over time, this shift in behavior became clear to his coworker. The jabs no longer had any effect. The attempts to provoke Adam had lost their power. And eventually, his coworker lost interest altogether. This simple, yet profound shift is where true strength lies. Adam didn't need to defend himself because he recognized the pattern of provocation. He understood that by not reacting, he was in control, not of the situation, but of his own emotions. His silence became his defense, and in doing so, he regained his power. When we choose to engage with someone who is trying to provoke us, we are essentially saying, "You have control over how I feel." But when we choose not to react, we say, "I am the master of my emotions, and you do not have that power over me." The lesson here is clear. Recognize the pattern of provocation for what it is. A trap meant to pull you into an emotional storm that serves no one. By remaining detached, by choosing not to react, you retain your power. The drama, the conflict, the tension, it all loses its power over you. You are not denying the situation or the feelings that arise, but you are choosing not to let them control your actions. You are choosing peace, and when you do this, you free yourself from the cycle of conflict, allowing your energy to remain undisturbed, no matter what others try to throw your way. This is the heart of true strength, not reacting, not being swayed by the winds of negativity, but standing firm in your own peace, unshaken and undisturbed. By doing so, you deny others the satisfaction of controlling your emotions, and instead, you allow yourself to stay grounded, calm, and in control of your own mind. 7. When someone regrets losing you. When someone regrets losing you, it's one of the most profound moments of personal growth and understanding. It's not a moment you seek, nor is it something you ever expect to happen. But when it does, there's a quiet power in that moment, because it shows you, in no uncertain terms, your worth. It's not about getting validation from others, but about recognizing the strength that comes from within. And in many ways, It's a moment where silence becomes even more powerful. You see, regret often comes after a loss. And the pain of that loss reveals something deeper. It shows how much someone values something only after it's gone. In relationships, whether romantic, familial, or even friendships, we often give so much of ourselves. We offer our time, our energy, our care, sometimes even our identity. But there comes a time when you realize that the effort isn't being reciprocated. You begin to feel unseen, unappreciated, and your value is dismissed. The urge to make others understand how much you've given, how much you've been there for them, becomes overwhelming. But here's where the Buddhist wisdom kicks in. Attachment is the root of suffering. When you allow your self-worth to be dependent on someone else's recognition or acknowledgement, you give away your power. In these situations, the best thing you can do is to release the need for validation. Walk away, not in anger, but in peace. When you step away from something or someone who fails to recognize your worth, you are making a declaration to yourself. Your value does not depend on their acknowledgement. You understand that your worth is not up for debate. It is inherent. You don't need to prove it to anyone. A dear friend of mine, Olivia, learned this lesson the hard way. She was in a relationship where she constantly felt taken for granted. She gave everything, her time, her love, her support, yet she always felt like the other person took her for granted. She was always there, but when she needed something in return, there was always an excuse, an oversight, or a dismissal. It left her feeling empty, unnoticed, and undervalued. After a long time of trying to make it work, Olivia realized that nothing would change. The love and effort she put in were not being reciprocated, and the relationship, instead of lifting her up, was dragging her down. So, Olivia made the decision to walk away. She didn't leave with bitterness or anger, but with quiet dignity. She simply let go. No grand speeches, no explanations, just the act of stepping away, knowing that she deserved more than to be someone's afterthought. She allowed time to show her what the relationship really was, and what was truly important. In the days that followed, the person she had left behind reached out, full of regret, but by that point, Olivia had already found peace. She had already moved on, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. The regret from the other person was palpable, but Olivia's silence spoke louder than any words could have. The lesson here is clear. When someone regrets losing you, it's a reflection of their realization that they didn't appreciate you when you were there. It's not a reflection of your worth, but rather a sign that they now see the value they failed to recognize. And in that moment, your silence is the most powerful response. You don't need to go back and prove your worth to them. You don't need to explain how much you gave, or how much you meant. Your absence, your decision to walk away, teaches them more than any words ever could. In the end, walking away from someone who took you for granted isn't about revenge. It's about self-respect. It's about understanding that your worth is not determined by someone else's ability to see it. By leaving, you are not losing anything, you are gaining everything: your peace, your dignity, your self-love. And when that person realizes what they've lost, they are left to carry the weight of their regret. But it's not your burden to bear. In every challenge we face, the teachings of Buddhism remind us that silence is far from a weakness. It is a profound strength, A quiet yet powerful choice that allows us to protect our peace and dignity. When we choose to remain silent in the face of insults, lies, betrayal, or even when others fail to recognize our worth, we are practicing detachment. We are letting go of the need to control the narrative and trusting that life will reveal the truth in its own time. This is where the true power lies, not in reacting, but in choosing to remain centered, calm, and unwavering. True peace, after all, comes from within. It doesn't depend on how others treat us, how they respond to our actions, or how much they appreciate us. Peace comes from knowing that we are enough, that our value isn't defined by anyone else's approval or opinions. The wisdom in silence is not just in avoiding conflict, but in holding space for yourself to process, to heal, and to trust in the natural flow of life. Silence becomes an active choice to protect your energy and let karma take its course. Knowing that, in time, the truth will emerge, and those who were not meant for you will fade away. The lessons we've explored today are not just about silence for the sake of avoiding conflict. They are about learning to let go, to detach from the need for validation, and to trust that the universe will handle what words and actions cannot. And when you practice silence with awareness, it becomes a powerful tool for maintaining your inner calm and integrity, no matter the storm outside. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. I hope the lessons shared today resonate with you and that you can apply them in your own life. Remember, sometimes the greatest strength is not in reacting, but in trusting that silence and time will reveal the truth, and karma will take care of the rest. If this video has inspired you or made you reflect on your own experiences, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please share your reflections, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that helps us grow together. Keep your peace, trust in the process, and let silence be your guide. Thank you for watching.